This is King here, and I'm sitting here with my client Nkenge Yasin from Learning How. And this session, we're going to be talking about some of the ways that she is implementing her methodology to help improve early encounters in Baltimore City. So we're going to start this discussion, this four-part series, with a set of questions so we can get a better understanding of who Nkenge is, her competence, why she's an authority in this field. Then we're going to talk about some and get her to share some of the case studies of what happened in her own personal life, as well as some of the lives that she's actually impacting and affecting on a daily basis. So, with that being said, how you doing today, Nkenge?
I'm great, King. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So let's go ahead and get started. Why don't you share with us just a little bit about who you are, how long you've been in business, why you create Learning How, and which city you grew up in.
Sure. So King, I just first like to just give gratitude to the opportunity to always share and discuss what I do, my experiences, because I'm a firm believer that when you are helping others heal, you also heal. So I know as we discuss all of the questions that you sent me prior to this meeting, and all of that great stuff, that something inside of me will be healed as well. So I'm really looking forward to this opportunity, this first of four-part series. So my name is Nkenge Yasin. I am the founder of Learning How Child Development Center, originally Busy Bees Early Learning Center. um, Busy Bees Early Learning Center started off as a family child care that later evolved into what it is now. I had a passion for working with children, and over the years learned that there was much more to developing children than just babysitting. So I went back to school and got my degree in early childhood education, and that's where Learning How started to evolve. I started learning that some of the things that we were learning, or I was seeing consistently with children, was really cognitive brain development and different functions that I would later learn are schemas, and just the way that your brain is firing, the way that the dendrites are moving and connecting. And so learning how became more of a child development as opposed to just passionately loving to work with children. I am originally from Baltimore. I am one of six. And one of I always like to put emphasis on one of the poorest neighborhoods in Baltimore City, because I think we discredit so often success stories that come out of those spaces. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll let you continue.
Okay, so now with that understanding, and thank you for sharing that. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and really get your insight. I know you've gone through some major challenges in your life. You've also had some major successes in your life. And that's what I really want to begin to share with our listening audience is when you connect to your higher purpose, you can overcome anything. And that's what this series is really going to be about. Not only what you've overcome, but your advice on guiding others to help them overcome in their lives as well. So, with that being said, the first question we want to begin with is what do you see as the greatest challenges facing children in Baltimore City?
So I don't think that it's exclusive to Baltimore City, but if we are specific, I think it is a challenge that is amongst any area, low income, poverty stricken areas. If we want to start with Baltimore, being as though this is where I have the most experience, I would say that one of the biggest challenges is a lack of love. Um, I know that sounds really cliche, but when you just think of what love means and what it is, biblically, what it is that people think of romantically, it's that caring, nurturing, servitude, gratitude, all encompassing. And I think that's a big thing that's missing. So when I watch interactions with individuals and their children, it is a reciprocal effect of hurt people hurting people. And I think the only thing to actually counter that is for people to start seeing something different, modeling something different. And that's what learning how does. We model different. And what that looks like is showing children love no matter what their situation is, or showing families and their parents love no matter what that situation is. And just as an example of that, um, you alluded to this earlier by saying when you are attached to your higher purpose. I am confident that my higher purpose is changing lives through early encounters. So, what that looks like for me is when I ask a parent not to block the fire lane and they use language um, that is very offensive, that I have to understand that. And I'm not saying that I pass this test every day, but I have to understand that that just means that um, they have some sort of hurt inside of them, and it's not personal. I think when you are living through your purpose, you realize that um, those experiences and those interactions are not personal. So I would say the biggest thing is that's missing is love and hope. I think changing the mindset of individuals to be able to see beyond what they're used to seeing, and really showing them that genuine love no matter what they do. Because I always feel like I say that I'm in a bubble all the time. People hear me say that all the time, that I'm in a bubble. And what I mean by that is that I feel like I'm always protected as long as I'm grounded in my spirituality and in myself and in my purpose. So what I feel like is lacking is hope and love. And I know we'll get to later what that would look like implementing.
Okay, great. So that's a good answer, and I appreciate you sharing that. Now, what strategies or techniques do you suggest to get parents more involved and engaged?
So we have several different strategies, and I think the most important one is meeting them where they are. Like really. Written by Miles Davis. He calls. Oh, Miles Davis, one of my favorites. So it's really meeting people where they are, like not implementing strategies that we assume that would make them better people. I know that when I first developed learning how, and in my planning stages of learning how, I was very overzealous of what people needed. All they need is financial literacy, and they'll get on the bandwagon of buying homes. And I started hosting all of these home buying classes and financial literacy classes, and no one would show up. Um, and it wasn't until I started just having that intimate relationship with each individual parent and having a conversation about what they needed. And you realize what they need sometimes is someone to talk to. What they need is someone um, to help support or see their vision of what it is that they want to accomplish. So I think the strategies would be um, really taking the time out to listen and creating activities around what it is that they need. So it could be something as simple as a self-care day. Before we can get to financial literacy, we have to address the importance of them taking care of themselves, and making better decisions daily that will later evolve um, into other things that I was overzealous initially about. So all of those self-care. So one of the strategies I would say is internal, helping people to love themselves. And that may look like treating someone to getting their hair done or feel good, or watching their children, having a parents' night out so that they could just get out and debrief, and maybe saying, look, these are some things I think you should do while you're out. You know, uh, uh, introducing them to some audible books. And like I said, just really listening, because each parent and each situation is different. Really figuring out what it is that they need. If they need someone to talk to, providing some of the wraparound services that we offer, like they may need counseling, and even that can get tricky sometimes, because I can't say although I truly believe in counseling is a great method of countering, or not countering, of supporting families. I'm not sure if all of the counselors are equipped to deal with the level or the space that's needed for some of the parents that we or every individual. So I wouldn't broadly say counseling. I would say the right counselor, which would take some time finding, and things of that nature.
Okay. Now, earlier, your first question you answered was some of the greatest challenges children facing is they're missing love and hope. And so I know that love and hope is something that you really uh, model where you were at learning how. You have it on the jewelry that you wear and the shirts and on the walls and things of that nature. So, how do you define love and hope that these children are missing, and how do you go about giving them that?
That's a great question, King. And I will say that it evolves every day, because every challenge is different. Um, and so that's not a just one. I can't answer that one way. What I will say is, you have to be really intentional with your patience. You have to be really intentional with um you have to be really intentional with your patience. You have to be really intentional with your words, making sure that your biases and your fears do not um, transition over to other individuals. And one of the beauties I think about working with children is that they have everything that we're trying to relearn. So they already think that they can send a ship into space. They're not trying to they're not trying to undo anything that they learned over the years. They already can imagine being a doctor. They can imagine they dress up and they think very highly of themselves. So I think it's more so of us taking a page back out of their book and modeling what they are already showing us. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. Now, and we're going to get more into this maybe in later episodes, but I know that you've had your share of trauma in your life, but then at the same time, you've experienced trauma from friends and family members as well. And then you've also experienced trauma with the clients that you have with learning how. My question now, with that understanding, is how do you deal with trauma and overcome it?
Deal with trauma. I think I can answer that. I don't think you ever overcome trauma. I think you just learn different ways to manage it. So you have healthy ways of managing it. And then you have unhealthy ways of managing it. Some of my ways of handling some of my personal trauma in the past, just being transparent in my process, is sometimes it was excessive shopping. I love Marshalls, TJ Maxx, Ross. I should get paid for plugging them, but I love those stores. Um, so excessive, excessive uh, shopping has been one of the ways that I've coped. Uh, I used to drink, so drinking sometimes was a way that I would cope with it. Um, and But one of the most healthy ways that I would say, dealing with trauma would be exercise and just understanding the what is released, the level of serotonin that's released in the brain when you exercise. I think that is so important. So exercise, I always feel really good. And I think not I think I know that one of the ways of dealing with your trauma is helping someone else through theirs. And so that's one of the things that fulfills me here. Just to mention my trauma, just for the listening audience to understand, that it's not just a surface level. My mom and dad was divorced, and because that is still a trauma, and I'm not going to discredit that. but I always like to refer to Baltimore as like this hierarchy of harm, right? You have there's always going to be someone that can trump yours. So there's going to be that person that dealt with the divorce. For me, it was having both of my brothers senselessly murdered 5 years apart, amongst several other family members, but my brothers would be the most close to me. But as soon as you start to have that conversation in Baltimore, like I said, there's this hierarchy of harm. And, I always, when I say that, it's like someone has lost their brothers, they were molested when they were a kid, they were this, they were that. And then you almost end up grateful for your own experiences. So, one of the things, another thing that I would say in dealing with it is getting around good people. Like, I really appreciate like people like you being my mentor. I have several other mentors. Is really getting in those loving circles. I can't stress love enough. But getting in those loving, safe spaces where you have great people around you that fulfill you, and like in servitude, just really doing the work every day. It is not something that I think people don't like when I say this, or specifically I have a cousin that doesn't like when I say this, but I feel sometimes we're like the sacrificial lamb. So some of the things that we go through, the Lord gives us that strength to be able to help someone else that's going to go through it. So that's what I would say. The way that you deal with it is by helping someone else that's going through it, or figuring out a way to prevent it. And that's what Learning How does. We work on the preventive side. Um, I understanding child development. I know how we can create a serial killer. I know how we can create a young man or young woman that does not enjoy learning. And so for me, it's about supporting those who have gone through it or gone through different trauma already, but more importantly, preventing it, reaching the children early and putting those wraparound services around their families to make sure that they are better supported, and that they are better supported and have the resources that they need to deal with it, to deal with what they're going through.
Okay. Now, I notice you seem to have a lot of children in the background now. How many children do you actually serve at Learning How?
So our facility is has a capacity for 96. However, right now we're at a current capacity about like 77. Most of them are here in the morning and in the afternoon. And then our other location, Busy Bees Early Learning, which is still operable. It's just on pause right now. We are licensed for 31 there. And COVID kind of slowed us down at that location, but we're here right now with about 77 students enrolled.
Okay. And what are the age range of the children
Um,
you have enrolled?
sure, that's a great question, because childcare has many different ranges, and depending on what location or what size building or capacity that you have, we service from six. We are licensed from 6 weeks to 12 years old, unless they have a disability. They can go as um, we go up to age 15 if someone may be on like the autistic spectrum, if they have Down syndrome, all of those things, we could go up to age 15, as long as it's within our capacity of being able to provide quality care for that individual. Um, yeah, so those are the ages.
Okay. Now, what is currently lacking, in your opinion, in Baltimore City specifically, with regards to improving early encounters?
Um, so I think what I would say, um, I think Baltimore City has tons of resources, tons of nonprofits. Um, I think what it is lacking is access to those resources. I have been here all my life, and I am still finding out about programs here that I didn't know exist. And I am hopeful one day that there will be this one dashboard that connects all of the different services that are here. So Let me give you an example. If a person qualifies for, let's just say, temporary cash assistance, which is what it's a subsidy that they could get if they're unemployed, right? That same requirement or bracket that they use to determine eligibility is the same requirement for about 20 other programs. So I think that we are sitting in a very wealthy city of resources and programs that people just don't know about. So I think that one of the things that it is lacking is is uh, connection of those resources. And then the I will always go back that would trumpet is hope. I think people have been beat down so much that they don't even believe certain things can even exist anymore. So I think it's just a lack of hope, um, that I challenge myself and my friends and everyone else that have had the opportunity or the success to um, be removed from some of those traumatic experiences and be able to look at it from a observation, like as an observer now, to model that hope, like, to show up as, look, I have experienced what you have experienced, and this can be this if you believe that it can be.
Okay. Now, what are three key things that you have learned about raising children in Baltimore City that can be helpful to other families that you like to share?
Oh, so i'm always um I run a podcast on Tuesdays called Parenting Doesn't Come with the Book that will be relaunching on November the 1st. And I am always remiss to not sound like the expert, and that is my own fear and trauma, right? Because I'm going to answer that, but I want to preface it with this, because I really do not believe that parenting comes with a book. I think it is something that some of us are luckier than others, but we're all doing our absolute best. One of the strategies that I would say of the three would be to keep your children as busy as possible. Um, Raising my son, I would always have him involved. He went from hockey to baseball to football to basketball. You lacrosse, you name it. I had him extremely busy. I wish I would have had him reading more, but that was what I knew to do then. With my second, so my son is 23. Then I have a almost 13-year old who I keep extremely busy as well. I believe in keeping children extremely busy. I don't know how realistic that is, though, for every parent. But I would say, as much as possible, keep them extremely busy and create that. Um, and then the third thing would be create a village of trusted adults around them. Um, because they're going to need them. They're not going to always talk to you about their problems, because you will not. It's going to come to a point where their friends are more influential than anything you ever taught them. They may come back to it later, but their friends are more influential than anything that you ever taught them. But creating that village of trusted adults, including people that are closer to their age. If you have nieces or nephews, that you can create that for them. um, and as much as possible, choosing, um, limiting their exposure to things that you do not want them to know. And I know in this day and time, healthy media habits are very difficult to have, but I would say creating those healthy media habits as much as possible, and having them um, uh, only know what you want them to know. I remember as a child, I got in trouble. My father, this was the only whipping that I ever had, or spanking, whatever you want to call it. This was the only one my dad ever gave me because I was a daddy's girl. Was I asked him what did gigolo mean, because I heard someone in school say the word gigolo and they turned it into a cheer. Whereas now my children don't have to ask me what anything means, but it told my father what kind of girls I was starting to hang with, what things I was starting to get interested in, and it gave him an opportunity to pivot. Whereas now I think we have to be very, very, very intentional about learning what they already know so that you can create those you can help navigate them through a lot of their processes.
What advice would you give to a young teenage girl who's 15 years old and she's pregnant?
15 and pregnant, I would say it's not the end of the world. I mean 50, okay, 15 and pregnant and having it, or 15 and pregnant and not having it.
Having it.
Okay, it's not the end of the world. Let's boss up. Let's figure out what's next. This is and that's just life. I would say that would be my advice to a 15-year-old girl making any decision. Let's figure out what's next. This is now your responsibility, and this is going to be your new life. But this is let's figure out what resources are available to you, and what dreams do you still want to accomplish. I was 17 having my son, and I had teachers that I understand why they would say it was the end of the world. I had a full scholarship to University of Maryland Eastern Shore, that I was excited to be able to go to the party school. But and I'm not condoning teen pregnancy at all, but I truly don't think it's the end of the world. I would encourage my daughter, or children that are not pregnant, to explore, see the world, travel, do other things before you have children. But it doesn't end your life just because you have it. I attribute a lot of my success to my son, a lot of my better choices to my son. And being a parent, is something that turns on for you when you have that experience of bearing a child, and God giving you that opportunity to birth a human being. It does something inside of you, in some ways. So I would say, what's next, young lady? Where do you want to go, and let's still accomplish those goals. And lastly, about that, I just recently watched a movie. I can't remember the name of it. It might have been Plan B or something, where it shows that her pregnancy test at her high school graduation or party, it comes back positive on one side, and then it comes back negative on the other side. But it shows the parallel of her life, the whole entire movie, what it would have been either way. And that's my new favorite movie. And if I would show that movie to her, I don't want to show it to my daughter because I don't want her. I definitely don't want my daughter to get pregnant. But if I had to, I would show it to any pregnant girl, to show that life is going to be okay. You're just going to have different challenges with a baby, and a different set of challenges without a baby. But the challenges are going to be there.
And then the last question would be, what does learning how do to help children overcome traumatic experiences?
So learning how definitely focuses on the or not focus. I won't say focus. Learning how um, really looks to research. We use research to in all of our planning. And so one of my I'm not going to say favorite, because it's favorite isn't the right word, but one of our go-to studies is the ACEs study. And so we use that to make plans and use the strategies that the ACEs study, what came out of that study. We use that to guide what we do. We also have PRP services, which is psychiatric rehabilitation, some other fancy word service, where the children are paired with a mentor, along with are paired with a mentor along with the counseling service. And in using those the children are able to the children are able to work through whatever traumatic experiences that they have had. Child development is my space, and so although I am always learning about the things that are encompassing of child development, though the level of trauma that our children have experienced, for me, requires a more medical, therapeutic type of resource. And so we lean to those, leaving it up to the psychologists to help support them in their traumatic experiences. um, as a teacher, we have not been trained, or as an administrator, as an owner of a child development center, I can't tell you one training that I've taken that has equipped me to deal with a child who has seen his parent murdered in front of him. And
Mm.
those are the type of experiences that our children have, horrific experiences that our children have encountered. So I understand that that is not in my capacity, although I am always going to continue to learn about those things. I am mindful that that is something that I am continuing to seek more support on. But right now, we give a loving, enriched experience while children are here. And we are continuing to identify external partners that will help us with those challenges.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answers, and Kenja. I definitely appreciate your investment of time and energy when asking these questions. Starting off our first part of our four-part series, I've been very candid. We're going to go a little deeper in our second part. We want to get into some of the experiences you face, some of the stories you face from colleagues and clients, just so that people can really understand kind of what you had to overcome. And they can really appreciate where you're going and where you're at right now. So, again, I want to thank you for being here, being present, and being the wonderful spirit that you normally are. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for having me, King.